All right, we are down to our last couple sections of Unit 4. The last two videos are going to be all about Jackson. We are going to pick up with the election of 1824. Now, I want you to think about the election of 1800 as we're going through this election of 1824, because these two elections are going to be the first two in our nation's history where we don't have a clear-cut winner. So, the election of 1824, we have four Democratic Republicans running for president. Remember, we're still in that era of good feelings where we only have one political party, so it's just four members from the same party running against each other. The competitors that we have John Quincy Adams, the former Secretary of State. The Secretary of State position has become a stepping stone to the presidency. What I mean by that is, in the past, we've seen former secretaries of states move on to become president, Jefferson being one such example. William Crawford, another Democratic Republican from Georgia. Andrew Jackson, we heard his name from the Battle of New Orleans in the War of 1812. He is going to be a war hero from Tennessee. And then we have Henry Clay from Kentucky. Henry Clay, we know his name from the American system. So these guys are pretty well known. In this election, there is no clear cut winner. Although Jackson is going to be one that wins more popular votes than John Quincy Adams. But when we look at where the votes come down to, even though we have one political party, it is pretty split. Jackson is going to be popular in the southern states and in the western territories, and Adams is going to be seeing his following in the northeast. When we look at the electoral votes, you can see that it kind of flows to the side of Jackson in the picture there. But because there is no clear-cut winner when we go to count the ballots, it then goes to the House of Representatives to choose exactly who the president is going to be. So at this point in 1824, we did not know who the president was going to be. The House, just like in 1800, was going to have to decide. Now, the House is the second time they're choosing who the president is going to be. Out of the candidates, Henry Clay is going to give his support to John Quincy Adams, and that is going to push John Quincy Adams to win. Now, the reason that Henry Clay gives Adams his support is because Adams told him he could have that coveted, that wanted position of Secretary of State. Adam says, "Sure, I'll make you my Secretary of State if you give me all of the people that would have voted for you." And that's how it happens. And John Quincy Adams then gets the presidency. Henry Clay gets the Secretary of State position. And this becomes known as the corrupt bargain because they made this backdoor deal so that Adams could win the presidency, Clay could get the Secretary of State, thinking that later on he would get the presidency, and Jackson gets left in the dark with nothing. So Jackson is pretty angry, and he labels this the corrupt bargain, seeing that Adams and Clay both benefit from this situation. And this term corrupt weakens Adams' presidency moving forward. In 1824, we're going to see a shift in democracy. Democracy is going to change. After 1824, presidential electors in the Electoral College begin to vote based on the popular vote. Before, the people would elect their electors, and then the electors would be on their own to vote for the president. This is going to be the first time that we start seeing the popular vote tied to where the electors vote in the Electoral College. That is huge. Another big shift in democracy, in voting, State constitutions are going to be rewritten to get rid of or abolish the land requirement to vote. Now we are going to see any white male that pays taxes can start voting. That is huge. It changes how many people can vote. It inspires the people to participate in their government. And when the people have a voice through their vote, it means that we are connected. We are nationalism is inspired. When you feel like you're a part of something, you want to do your best, you want to participate, you want to be informed. And that's what changes here when more people get the right to vote. Now, Jackson is going to spend the entire time that Adams is president trying to undermine his presidency, calling him corrupt, saying that he's an elitist, really bashing him to the people. And the goal of this is to set Jackson up for the election of 1824. Jackson is going to have a little bit of help from Martin Van Buren, who is a New York politician, and he is going to aid Jackson under these new voting requirements for the next election. What happens is we paint Jackson as the face of democracy. He goes out and campaigns directly to the people. He celebrates majority rule, the common man, and he labels this new democracy Jacksonian democracy. And you're going to read about that for homework tonight. But I cannot stress how monumental it is that the people are getting the right to vote and they don't need to have that property requirement anymore. Now, of course, the people that are not voting at this time are going to be African Americans, women, Native Americans. They're not considered citizens, so they're not going to have the right to vote. Even freed African Americans are not going to have the right to vote under this new democracy. It really is just white men who pay taxes. But still, that is a widening of who is voting. So we get to the election of 1828. When we look at Jackson, people see the story of the nation. He was born in a log cabin. He was raised as an orphan. He was wounded in the American Revolution. He moved to the western frontier. He became a lawyer, which is where he built his wealth on his own back. He wasn't handed anything. He was also a planter in Tennessee. He went on to participate in the War of 1812, where he becomes this great war hero. He is the fighter and defeater of Native Americans. He defeated the Creeks and the Seminoles, especially that victory in Florida in the Seminole Wars. The people love his story. They see themselves in him. They can relate to him building up his life, really creating something out of nothing. And his supporters start to call themselves just Democrats, just Democrats. And this really pushes people to vote for him because he is speaking to them. He is relating to them. He is using those people who are voting for the first time and pulling them in to this new system of the election. In the election of 1828, Jackson is going to win 56% of the popular vote and 2/3 of the electoral votes. That's huge. He wins by a landslide. All of that undermining of Jackson that he did really starts to pay off. His inauguration is completely different than we had ever seen before. So when Jackson is giving his inaugural address, he gives it to a very rowdy crowd in Washington, D.C., and he's speaking to the people that put him in the White House. He is speaking directly to the people. He is a man of the people. Jacksonian democracy, the story of the nation. He really does bring that out. When he gives this speech, he becomes the symbol of triumph for the new democratic style. Remember, democracy means participation of the people. We are a democratic republic, meaning the people vote for representatives in their government. The power from the government comes from the people. This democratic style is what Jackson said the nation needed. It is what the people needed to have in order to have a government that speaks to what they want. And he says, I am more democratic than that aristocrat Adams. He was a career politician. Look at his family. He was related to John Adams. This is John Quincy Adams. So he has relatives. This is all just hereditary. It looks too much like a king. They're elitist. And because of where Jackson's support is down south and in the West, you're going to see a different group of people come out than those in the New England states. The New England states are going to be more industry, merchants, trading, whereas in the South and the West, you see that agriculture based, and that's really where the people split. Jackson is going to promise to return to Jeffersonian principles. Now remember, Jefferson had the same support of people. He was he was the proponent for the agriculture economy, the agrarian economy. He was the first true Democratic Republican, and he says that there should be strong state government, that the people need to have a voice. And Jackson says we need to get back to that. We Democrats need to get back to that. He also brings up this idea that the federal government needs to be weaker so that it doesn't interfere with slavery. That is big. So not interfering with slavery is going to gain him more support, is going to make the people love him even more in the South and in the West, because he says, I won't touch slavery. He also wants to return power to the state governments, weaken that federal government, which is the very basis of the Democratic Party, the Democratic Republican Party at this time. We are going to have a new party structure under Jackson. This is big. The system is going to rely on state and local communities and conventions. So when we see new campaigns and new election cycles, that we're going to look at the lower level, the smaller communities, hold conventions, hold rallies, give speeches to the people. This is not something that was done before. Washington wasn't going through the 13 states and asking people to vote for him. That was not how we were campaigning. But now, because the electors have to vote based on the popular vote, the candidates really do need to speak to the people, or else they won't get elected. This new party structure, this new campaigning structure, is going to encourage support and encourage a more democratic election process, which is big because now more people are voting. Their say is a little bit heavier. Also, what we're going to see is the the candidates are going to appeal to the voters in a way that the voters would then become sympathetic to them. They can relate to them on a human level. They can see themselves as really being connected to their leader, which is important. Even going back to the roots of the American Revolution, we don't want a ruler that is so separated from the people they can't understand them. We want them to understand us. It also, this new party structure, this new campaign style, creates a business out of politics. And this is huge. Before this point, all of our politicians, all of the people participating in the government had something else going on. They were merchants, they were farmers, they weren't just the president or a representative or a senator or a governor. They also had a life, a business, some other piece to them. But under this new style of campaigning, you had to be a full politician. You could not be both. If you didn't dedicate your entire life to politics, then you couldn't be successful. So now we're going to start to see the career politician come into the election cycle. Under Jackson, this new idea comes to fruition as well. The new party rewarded those that were loyal to them with government jobs. We are going to call this the spoils system. This is huge. This is always on the regents. And I usually ask, what's it mean to be spoiled? And the answers I always get are, you get everything handed to you, you don't have to work for anything, you just get what you want. That's the exact idea of what the spoils system is. Jackson used government positions to gain votes, to gain support of people. And what he does is, if people voted for him and encouraged other people to vote for him, he would give them a government position, which was power. And who doesn't want power? This new idea of the spoil system is going to carry on even in our politics today. This is huge. Now, we are going to stop here for today. You have your reading on Jacksonian democracy to do for homework. Please let me know if you have any questions, and I am happy to help.